And run. Kim-Lien and Kendall, thanks for being on Fitness and Consciousness.
Of course. Anytime. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I have a broken nose at the moment, but besides that, I'm good.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I saw your posts and stuff, but I think your face was kind of hidden, and it didn't. It doesn't
Yeah.
look like from here
Like,
that
all
you.
the swelling has gone down. Luckily for me, I have one of those flat Asian noses, so you can't tell, but there's all of this right here is basically in pieces.
Oh man.
It's fine. I don't it doesn't seem to block my breathing and you can't see it, so I'm electing not to get surgery and just let it heal. So I'll probably still be off the mats for like 2, 3 more weeks. And then I got to wear one of those like basketball masks.
hmm
So we'll see how that goes.
I just saw a video a few days ago. Josh Barnett fixing some guy's broken nose. Have you seen that with a pin?
No, but I've seen people get adjusted. So it's really like,
Yeah, this guy was like weightlifting. I don't know what Josh Barnett was doing there. If it was like if he was, I don't know why he was there. If he was doing some grappling thing but this guy was doing snatches, and somehow the bar hit his nose and broke his nose.
oh my God.
But Josh Barnett, who has probably seen quite a few broken noses in his day, had him lay down, and he stuck a pin up his nose. And the
Yeah.
guy's like, "Are you really doing that?" He's like, "Yeah." And like way up. And then he's like adjusting it, and he's like looking, and um, yeah,
And they don't use, and like they had to adjust mine a little bit. So they stuck like the little, I don't know what it is, like a metal piece, but yeah, they go like way up in there, and he had to move it around a little bit just so that I could breathe out of that nostril. But there's no anesthetics, nothing. It's just like this is going up your nose, and we're moving it. So it's I have a bit of a face sensitivity, which is strange that I do jujitsu, but I don't like things touching my face. It's one of the reasons I don't wear makeup. So that was a bit much for me, but luckily that's all I have to do.
yeah. Well, so it'll just like piece back, or it'll just fuse back together, and it'll be fine.
It's gonna heal like it heals. Most likely, I'm assuming that there's gonna be a large formation of scar tissue, and that the pieces that aren't connected are just gonna be somehow embedded in the scar tissue. Who knows? But I was worried about any danger to my eye because I can only see out of this eye. I have amblyopia since birth, so the retina never developed on this side. So of course, anything surrounding this area, I'm a little concerned with.
Hmm.
But the ENT said it was fine, and the ER doc said it was fine, so should be good to go.
How did it happen?
Oh, I can actually send you a video. It was a freak accident. So it was after I went and competed in Masters Worlds. I didn't do so well, but that's another story. I came back. I had taken like a week off because it was like a whole bunch of intense training going into that tournament. So I was like, oh, I'm going to take a week off, just mental break, whatever. The first day that I returned back to rolling, I was just with a couple friends of mine, and I was coming up to take her back, and she was turning into me, and her skull basically just slammed right into my face. And it happens. It's funny because in like the 4.5 years I've been doing this, nothing's ever happened to my head. And the last 6 months, I got a concussion and I have a broken nose. So I'm like, I hope this is the end of what happens to any of this.
Yeah, concussions are scary. I've been reading
Yeah,
some about
that
them.
was that was the worst injury I've ever had for sure. Because like you can't do anything, like I couldn't. If I turned my head too fast, I would get completely disoriented. So I think that was definitely my worst injury.
That was a jujitsu thing, also.
Yeah, and it was like again a freak accident. I was on my back. We were doing a situational training. I don't know how familiar you are with training, but basically someone is mounted on you, and your job is to escape. So I'm on my back. Another person's on top of me, and another pair of partners next to me who were rolling together. I guess one of the guys just tossed another guy off, and this guy just literally landed on my face, and my head hit the mat.
Mhm.
So, and it was funny because when that happened, I go, well, thank goodness I don't have a broken nose. And now I have a broken nose. So
Um,
all comes full circle. It's a it's a sport. I tell people this all the time. You really have to love it to do it because injury is inevitable, really. So, but that's also what I love about it is the people who do jiu-jitsu love it so much that they really don't care. They're like, oh, broken leg, it's fine. Getting back on the mats in a few weeks, whatever, whatever. So it's a thing. It's a whole entire culture, you know.
Yeah, I started like jiu-jitsu about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it's always like when you're practicing how to kill people, you're going to get injured.
Yeah,
And
that's
we can try to take care of our training partners, and then,
right.
you know, it's a lot of times it's like the white belts that cause injuries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the last couple times it's been freak accidents, but I remember when I was a blue belt, I made a pretty strong rule for myself not to roll with white belt men, not because of anything aside from they just don't know what they're doing and you're more likely to get injured. It's not really their fault, but they tend to be spazzy, men and women, right? But I feel confident enough now that I can at least defend myself when going against sort of like larger spazzy white belts. But if I'm anywhere close to a competition, I absolutely will not roll with someone I don't know. So.
Yeah. There was the guy at my class. He was like third degree black belt, and he was training with a white belt, and so he's letting him work, and so they get to a position where the black belt, he was kind of like sitting up, basically just sitting on his butt, and they were, and then the white belt had his arms kind of around his neck, and so he's just kind of like, you know, whatever. And then all of a sudden he like yanks down on him. It's like, oh great, and now he has neck injury.
Yeah.
So that was stupid. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't. You just don't know. Everybody starts at that white belt, and
You don't know, and then you have people who are like literally trying to murder you, like choke you, rip off your arm. Even if it's done slowly and with control, you don't. Having never experienced it, you're like, oh my god, I'm in so much danger, and definitely, I distinctly remember that feeling when I was a white belt. So I get it. I totally get it. And especially people who come in who are already athletic or already strong, and then you put them with people who are smaller than them and, you know, have less physical attributes, but somehow technique-wise they're able to just put them through a washing machine, basically. But that's what I love about it. It's a nerd sport. You know, the people who are, it's not always the biggest, strongest dudes. I mean, certainly like Buchecha, Leandro Lo, Gordon Ryan, they're all big dudes. Even in women, you've got like Gabby Garcia, who I finally got to meet at Masters Worlds, and I
saw
was
that
like,
picture. Man.
Oh my god! I've been near her physically before, but I didn't get to like meet her. I've always wanted to, and I was in the middle. It was funny. We were after I lost, and I was upset and everything like that. I happened to. I was taking pictures with my friend. And my other friend was trying to get someone to take a picture of us. And he goes and grabs Gabby Garcia's husband. Didn't know it was her husband, but I knew. So I see him, and I'm like, wait a second. And I start looking, and I see her, and I just jump out of the picture and run over to her. And, like, nothing sensical is coming out of my mouth. In fact, I think I looked her in the eyes, and I was like, I love you. And I think that's the only thing that I said. But I got a picture of her with her, and she's huge.
Yeah.
But in such an impressive way. Like her arm was like way bigger than my leg. Like just, and it's crazy because I'm like shaking her hand and holding her, and she's solid, but she's like still very feminine, like really soft skin and really sweet. I've always admired her. So that was really cool. And you can see in the picture, I look like a little dwarf next to her.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really true, but I heard that she's given like Vanderlei a hard time on the mat. I don't know if she like
she's bigger than him.
What?
She's bigger than him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and there's even though she's big, her technique is still good. Same thing with I don't know if you follow jiu-jitsu now, but Tayani, she's winning everything. She's someone who, if you looked at her, you wouldn't assume that she could move as well as she does, But I like that because it breaks a lot of stereotypes about what athleticism manifests as, right?
Mhm.
Which to me is like DC is the epitome of that. Like you see this guy who is arguably the most athletic person on the planet right now, and he has a dad bod.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the kind of body that you would go, that man is the most dominant athlete in the world, but he is. And
Yeah.
I like that. Same with Tayani. Gabby Garcia certainly fits the phenotype of like someone who is just physically dominant.
Mhm.
But as I understand it, I believe that she suffers from gigantism and she has chronic pain. Or that's what I was reading.
Right.
I would love to interview her, for like a podcast or something, but I totally got tripped up when I saw her, so I don't think that would go well. Like, I don't even think I was speaking English. I was just babbling, like, I love you.
Does she speak English well?
She, as well as somebody who grew up speaking Portuguese, does.
Mhm.
So, yes, I believe she said things to me, but again, the whole thing was a blur. I think I asked her for a picture, and then I think she said, of course. And I believe that's how that went down. I kind of wish there was a video of the whole interaction because I guarantee it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm not one to get like starstruck or anything, but there's probably like some people where I would be kind of like that. And
I've been
somebody-
starstruck 3 times. One was meeting Gabby Garcia. 2 was meeting Leticia Ribeiro, who's like a champion of women's jiu-jitsu.
yeah,
And
that
then
in
the
my
3rd
eye.
one was Gil Headley. I'm sure you know who that is.
Yeah.
So I'm a big science nerd, a big jiu-jitsu nerd. So
Yeah. When you really train, you think you really learn that you cannot tell by looking how tough somebody is.
absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, I weigh like 160 something, and I've choked out dudes that literally twice my weight that are like big football looking dudes. Choke them out. I mean, multiple times.
Yeah.
And then I've been beat up by like like dudes smaller than me, kind of scrawny, kind of nerdy, and probably nowhere near as strong.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I end up getting choked out or like something, and yeah, you just can't tell. That's kind of what's so cool about it is.
It is. I've been embarrassingly so. I remember this is one of the first times that I really understood how essential jiu-jitsu was. I was rolling with my friend's cousin who came in town. She's a teenager. She was 14. And so I was like, oh, she's a kid. I'll take it easy on her. She wrapped me up like a bow tie. I was at her mercy entirely. I was like, all right, this shit works. It works. I just got beat up by a teenager. That's cool. So yeah, it's I absolutely love it. It's something that's taken over my life, whether it's in a positive or negative way. That's what it is now,
Yeah, it teaches you a lot more than just how to kill people. Like being able to just.
Oh yeah, it's so to me it's one of the reasons that I love yoga is that it's a reflection of your life, right? And there are things that in the moment during a yoga practice that you can find out about yourself that's a reflection of what's going on the outside. To me, in jiu-jitsu, it's intensified because you are training with different partners. So no matter what you come in with that day on the mat, it's going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hide from yourself in jiu-jitsu. And for me, at this point, it's like, progress is never linear. It's always this kind of thing going on. And I think that a lot of what's going on in my life is constantly reflected in my game. Like I'll get stuck in the same position with different people, and I'm like, all right, something's going on, and then it'll happen for weeks. I'll have these plateaus, and then usually it's like a personal breakthrough in my life, and then my jiu-jitsu game changes. So it's very reflective for me, like kind of like microcosm, macrocosm kind of thing, which is what makes me really appreciate it. And not only that, the friends that you make in jiu-jitsu are so much closer, physically closer, right? Like you go with these people, you try to kill each other all week, And that just, you form such a strong bond that's so different than other kinds of friendships that I've had, you know, because you have to remove the ego, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in order to, I've had friends who constantly kick my ass, and there's no hard feelings there. And I have friends who I constantly kick their ass, and there's no hard feelings. And sometimes the tables turn, and, you know, it's super exciting. So, and even when I went to Masters, it was like, even though I didn't win, a couple of my friends did really well. One of my training partners won her whole division. She was in the same division as me. And it was so exciting just to see that, you know, because I trained with her 4 or 5 times a week. And then to see her win was like, you know, incredible, because it's the worldwide championship. So.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, I train. It's kind of hard for me to get to regular classes now, but I teach a class a couple nights a week, and I don't present myself as like some great jiu-jitsu instructor. I've been doing it for a long time, and I really started teaching it like about a half hour after my first class. I became a jiu-jitsu teacher. I was training, like from the time I was like a pretty little kid. I would like box and wrestle with my dad and fighting with sticks and all kinds of stuff. And then in high school, I was training with friends. I had friends that did like Jeet Kune Do,
Okay.
like Shaolin styles, just a bunch of different. I just happened to have a bunch of buddies that trained in martial arts, and so we'd spar and we would do different stuff. And I was learning. One of my buddies, he was like Shaolin styles, so he knew like 30 some animal styles, all kinds of weapons, like the Jet Li, Jackie Chan kind of stuff. And then when I started training with him, I was like, okay, what style are we going to do? He goes, well, if you went to my class, you would be a tiger. So you would start off in tiger style, but I'm just going to learn you to fight. And it was basically like kickboxing. It was all just, there was no weird moves. It was basically kickboxing. And then my dad, he was like, this Hoist Gracie guy is winning these Ultimate Fighting Championships. You should learn jiu-jitsu. And so I found my jiu-jitsu teacher, and it was like traditional Japanese. He was actually invited here. He was from Korea. He was invited here in 1967 to move here and teach judo, because judo was getting more popular and they needed authentic teachers. So he was invited by like I think the Indiana Judo Association or something like that, or American Judo Association or something. But he was invited here, so he came here, and then it was like real traditional class, and it just blew my mind. So I drove straight from there to my buddy's house, and I'm showing like, check this out. I'm doing triangles and like all this stuff, and then within a pretty short amount of time of learning jiu-jitsu, I was able to like beat all these other guys that. It's like, here's how you do it. This is, but yeah, I was training like a female friend of mine, and for just about a year now. And so she's done a couple competitions and won, and kind of like smaller competitions. She does karate too. She's 2nd degree black belt in karate. And so sometimes her school, they're trying to get like more grappling stuff going. And another buddy of mine that I train is a 4th degree black belt in karate, and so he's doing more grappling when he's teaching karate. And sometimes those karate schools, they have more throws and stuff than what you would think. Some karate is
for sure. I've even seen some Wing Chun schools that show some throws. You know, they're different for sure. And it's the Wing Chun throws I've seen are kind of similar to some of the throws that I've seen in judo. I'm not a big fan of Aikido throws. I think a lot of the people end up throwing, like, I get the point, you turn the person's wrist and it kind of manipulates their entire body, but usually I don't think the option that most people would choose would be like, I'm just going to jump over and allow the person to toss me, you know. I feel like there are other options prior to that happening. So, and I actually used to do Kung Fu for a while. Shaolin, I did, it wasn't Wushu, it was, I guess it was called like Northern Fist or something. And when I was in Tallahassee and when I was in college, I did it for like 4 years. pretty consistently, like trained like 3 hours a day. I was really into it. And then when I learned jiu-jitsu, I was like, oh, no one ever taught me how to fight. Because it's, to me, being a smaller woman, and I tell women this all the time for self-defense, I'm not going to stand up and fight. You know, if somebody's attacking me, I'm not going to box them because I'm smaller and I don't have a reach, right? And then people say things like, oh, jiu-jitsu is not effective on the streets because the ground is not the same as the mats, which is very true, right? But if you end up on the ground, which is almost inevitable, right, you better know what to do. And if you're really good at takedowns, and I know people are like, oh, you're not going to pull guard outside. I totally get that. But in my opinion, if you want to know how to defend yourself and you want to know how to fight, you better know what you're doing on the ground. Because it's just going to happen, you know. Unfortunately, I used to be really rambunctious in my younger years, so I've been in street fights before, and I'd say a good percentage of them end up on the ground. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and if you're like the jiu-jitsu classes I did mainly, I've been to other ones like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes and stuff also, but like my main jiu-jitsu class, it's been a while since I've been there it's a whole nother story, but like we did a lot of throws. Some of the throws looked like Aikido throws, and some of the throws were more like what you'd see in judo.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way I see it, like judo came from jiu-jitsu, and so did Aikido.
Yeah.
So our school kind of looked like all of that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're learning those throws, like, and then we do like follow-ups, and so, but it's like if you do your throw right, you might not need a follow-up. So if you get somebody who's like trying to like grab you, and you do a throw, if you get a shoulder throw, he doesn't know to roll over or doesn't know how to fall,
Yeah.
or you're able to just direct
That's
his head straight into the concrete, you won.
Absolutely.
You might not wake up from that.
No, even if it doesn't knock them out, and most of the times it won't, you know, it's gonna stun them for sure. I personally, again, for self-defense purposes, don't like getting close enough to people to throw them. You know, I think maintaining distance is fairly important, and you know, we're talking about self-defense for women. I'm very much into throwing things, blocking the person's field of vision, finding something sharp, screaming, making a lot of noise, acting really crazy, going for the eyes, going for the throat, going for the nose, going for the mouth, going for the ears, going for the groin, obviously, right? Yeah. So that's more of my thing. And I'm, as we were talking about earlier, I'm a gi jiu-jitsu player, which a lot of people are like, I don't understand how that helps in self-defense. But people are wearing clothes for the most part. I don't think I've had a lot of experience fighting naked people. So,
and not everybody wears tights.
Huh?
Not everybody on the street wears tights.
Right, exactly. So, you know, even in a t-shirt, you can find collar grips. Like, this is a good shirt, even if I had to use it.
Yeah.
You know,
just a couple times. It'll work for a while.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's pretty effective. You can choke someone with their t-shirt, all of that. Do you mostly do no-gi?
Both. And like if people show up, like I'll bring like an extra like flannel like a flannel shirt. And so if somebody shows up and they don't have a gi, then here's a flannel shirt, you know, and it works just the same. I mean, yeah, it might tear easier, but it's going to work. And so when I was teaching a lot and I would have like several people showing up, I had just, we trained in my garage and I just had like a stack of old flannel shirts. Like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah, just, you don't have to have a certain color of belt or
no.
You can wear whatever belt you want at my class. I don't care what color.
So you're teaching people how to choke lumberjacks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, just in case you get in a fight out in the woods.
Yeah. If you ever come across a lumberjack, you.
So why? I mean, besides obviously people are going to be wearing coats and people are going to be wearing shirts, and you can use these t-shirts. They're going to rip and they're not going to last. They're not a long-term.
Oh no, not for sure not.
It will work for that one time.
Absolutely.
But why do you prefer gi over no gi?
It's for me, it's a preference thing. What it comes down to is that I compete in a sport, and the sport that I compete in is gi jiu-jitsu, and a sport has uniform and a sport has rules, and so I that's what I enjoy. I tried no-gi for a bit, and I'm definitely at the epicenter of no-gi champions, right? I train with Donaher, and I don't know if you watched the Pans over the weekend, but like Gordon Ryan just won double gold despite the fact that he has not done an IBJJF competition at black belt. So it's not even rules that he's necessarily familiar with, and he won every single match by submission. So, and his guys are winning a lot, and his systems are really great. He's a genius. So I, I'm at the place where if I wanted to learn no-gi, I could really be good at it. I tried it for a while, and I really like the gi. For me, there's nothing in the world more satisfying than a collar choke. Like if I can get someone in a super tight bow and arrow, get their collar across, grab their pants and just stretch them out completely and hear that, to me, that's the most satisfying thing in the world. Maybe I'm a psychopath. I don't know, but I love that, and you cannot replicate that in no-gi. The other thing is I really hate heel hooks. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying they're so effective, and I used to think
so effective.
We did them at my jiu-jitsu school, of course, the main one, like the traditional Japanese one, and but my thinking was kind of like I trained with I weigh like 160 something, so I'm usually training with people that are quite a bit bigger than me, and so in my mind, which maybe Donaher is changing my mind, and some of the things I've been watching a lot of catch wrestling.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with catch jitsu.
Yep.
Okay, so that dude, his style, I'm not saying I'm not as good as him or anything, but his style kind of looks like all the stuff that I like to do.
Yeah, and to me, that's submission grappling.
Yeah.
To me, which is a different thing than jiu-jitsu, in my mind. But again, I'm only a purple belt, and things evolve. So, but on the schedule for Henzo's, when you take Donaher's class, it does say submission grappling. So it's not like I just came up with that on my own. And I think part of the reason is that, and part of the reason I get frustrated is that it kind of takes passing out of the equation, right? So if I start standing and the person's on their butt, in my mind as a jiu-jitsu player, I'm trying to pass, and they're just waiting for me to step to try to pass so they can take my heel. And they do it like this. And then I get really mad. I'm like, yeah, I can't even pass your guard. You're just going to rip my heel off. That's great. So then you start to play real conservatively, and you're like, I'm not giving this person my foot. And it becomes a whole different thing where you're just constantly worried about the person attacking your feet. And I'm sure one day I'll get into it. Just for now, I'm like, nope, I'm sticking to gi jiu-jitsu, trying to win some medals here, and then we'll see what happens after that,
Is part of the reason you see a difference too is because like with submission grappling, like to me, if like somebody comes in and they're like real aggressive and they're real powerful and they get the shoulder lock and they're just they're using power and strength and they get that shoulder lock, it's the same shoulder lock that nerd is doing that's not strong and powerful, and he's just real slick and has perfect leverage and everything is calm and using the guy's strength against him instead of overpowering. Is that why you say it's different too? Because like in the submission grappling, you might be more seen like that.
No, you can still rip. Like I have lots of experience with bigger guys, and there are a couple good things that I specifically call big guy submissions, which is basically an Americana from anywhere or a Kimura from anywhere, and they just rip it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be from any position and just rip. So, and that's, I have to appreciate that. And I have to go, all right, don't put your arm there. Do not let this person get your arm in that position. So it's something that has to be respected, and I don't think that is different between no-gi or gi, So.
Yeah, it's kind of subtle, and I guess it may be kind of hard to explain, but I get what you mean. I think I get what you mean by it is like whatever it's like a reality. Like, so one of the guys that that comes to my class that I teach, he's the 4th degree in karate, he's a good grappler. He's done Jeet Kune Do. He's done a bunch of different stuff. He's only like, I think he just turned 24,
Ah, jeez.
but he's not. I mean, he does CrossFit. He's doing like weightlifting.
Yeah.
He's not your typical 24-year-old, but he's like really strong. Outweighs me by a little bit. But sometimes he's like trying to like power through stuff. And yeah, I have a hell of a lot more time on the mat than he does. So I don't have to like play strength against strength.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, he was, like I would be like putting him in like some kind of neck crank or some kind of something. And he would like start grabbing my esophagus. And so I'm like, okay, now if this was a real situation, so I'm like, I didn't say anything for a while. That can be like a pretty dangerous thing. So I was like kind of weighing it out in my mind. Okay, I'm putting him in this neck crank. I'm basically trying to tear his entire head off, and all he's trying to do is rip this little part of my throat out. So should I say you're not allowed to do that, or should I not say anything? And I just need to get so good that when somebody tries to do that, I'm able to not let it be a
thing.
problem. Yeah.
Yes, that's probably what a black belt would tell me. I'm assuming, right? Where it's like, because I've had experiences where I'm like, what if the person does this? Don't let them do that. Yeah. What if the person does this? Don't get in that position. Mm-hmm. What if the person does that? Well, make sure you're in a better position. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've had experiences as a woman, and any woman who does jiu-jitsu for any amount of time after a year will tell you that if there's quite a few men who you roll with and you beat them technically, right? And then they just come at you afterwards, which I understand. Like, I'm much smaller than them and didn't expect it, whatever. But the funniest one to me is when you get these people who are like, well, in real life, what would you do if I did this? And it's always something aggressive and crazy. And I'd be like, I'd fucking stab you is what I would do. And they look at me and I'm like, yeah, that's survival, right? Like, at that point, it's not jiu-jitsu, it's another thing. And I'm trying to defend my life. So if you're trying to kill me, I will find something sharp around me and I will go for a vital area. That's what I'll do. And that's the answer.
Yeah.
So
you'll crank up your intensity also, and it's not like the people say, oh, that's just like sport jiu-jitsu, or like the like UFC rules, like the guy doesn't know that if you kick somebody in the groin, that's really that you're probably going to win. So it's like they get used to like not trying not to kick the groin, but of course they know to. So like, yeah, in a street fight, those guys they still know what to do.
Exactly. And it's so effective. A lot of people really downplay the effectiveness of a groin kick, but there's been times where I roll with guys that I accidentally just brush their package with my knee trying to do a knee slice, and they have to stop for like 3 minutes. And I'm trying to be nice, but I want to roll, and I'm just like, oh, you need a ball break? Well, okay. How long is this? You're still on the floor? Okay. Oh, it still hurts? All right, cool. There's, and that's just gently brushing it with my knee, right? Imagine I'm outside and I really give them a knee to the groin. They're going down.
Yeah.
They're going down.
Yeah, the classical jiu-jitsu class I went to, a lot of the stuff starts with the kick to the groin. You block the punch, or you like part the arms that are trying to grab you or whatever. You kick to the groin and then throw.
Yeah.
Or you punch them in the face and then throw.
Exactly.
You do some sort of, call it like otome waza. You do some sort of striking technique. It's a lot easier to submit somebody after they're already busted up. You do something else first, and then you get to that point. What do you think about 10th Planet? A class. I went to one class, and I'm kind of, my buddy who, Blake Bruning, he's a 2nd degree black belt. I don't know if you know who Marcelo Monteiro is, but he's like a fourth
Mhm.
degree under
Yeah.
Hickson. And
Yeah.
but my buddy teaches at his school. His headquarters is in Indianapolis, and I've been there, and it's really good. And my buddy Blake is like just he's like an expert in like every effective martial art that exists. He's just an absolute badass, super good technique. And so I was like telling him, because I was like looking for no gi stuff, and there's this 10th Planet School. It's taught by brown belts, and I went there once. And I'm telling him about it, and he's like, I don't really like Eddie Bravo's shtick. I don't.
Yeah.
And it's like I went there, and they were nice guys, and I don't want to say anything bad about them. I only went one time, but like, what do you think about it? Like,
I don't know how much this is going to come back to me, but I kind of don't care. Personally, as a person, every time I've heard Eddie Bravo speak about anything, I'm like, you are a crazy person, like not sane. And it seems to me that his system is based off of people not liking rules that currently exist. Like I've seen a lot of those competitors lose matches and then say, well, it's because of the rules. It's like, well, you signed up for a thing that had rules that you knew, so you can't really complain about the rules because you lost. Also, a lot of their techniques, to me, are injurious, like rubber guard. That shit is not good for your knees, period. You know, I think that if you're going to play that kind of game, you have to have really good hip mobility. But if I'm in a case, for instance, where I'm trying to play rubber guard here, right, and my foot is stuck against them and my hip can't move and they put pressure down, that's just not safe for my knee. And I actually have a knee injury from trying to play rubber guard. And who knows, maybe I just need to get the technique down better and maybe create a better angle. But I do hip mobility work. Actually, one of the things I'm doing now is I teach a yoga class twice a week at my friend's jiu-jitsu school. So anyone who's watching this podcast who lives in Jackson Heights or Queens, my friend opened up a school. I've been training with him the whole time. He was at my old school. He just opened up a new school. He's a black belt called AT Jiu-Jitsu NYC, and it's in Jackson Heights. He's an amazing coach, but he has Muay Thai there and he has me there twice a week. And what I'm doing is I'm developing a program of mobility basically for grapplers. There's a lot of times where we have to be in positions that are not necessarily natural positions to be in, and they're very contorted, right? A lot of people actually say jiu-jitsu is involuntary yoga. Mm-hmm. You're getting put in these places that you need to be able to develop power from in a really like crunched up crazy place. So a lot of my what I teach has to do with the ability to maintain posture but move from your hips to segment different areas. Like, you know, what I've been focusing on recently is being able to keep my hips low, keep my posture up, but still be able to get a lot of mobility from my hips. It helps for passing, it helps for your bottom game, and it helps protect your knees by making sure that you're, you know, mobile and have control in all of your joints. Because a lot of it too is, and again, one of the things I appreciate about jiu-jitsu is the use of all four limbs independently, you know, and it's the what it does to the brain to be able to use my feet like hands and really grip from them, pull from them, weave my way in. Like the amount of proprioception that you develop in your limbs and sensitivity you develop in your limbs, in my mind, is unparalleled to any sport I've ever played. So it just makes you a more efficient human in my mind. So I'm developing a program to kind of, you know, help with that. And so far it seems like people like it.
Yeah, I bet you have the background and I think and probably the foresight also to see how it all works. You're training with such. I mean, Danaher is the man right now. He's
absolutely.
Maybe other people don't see what I see, but when I'm looking like even like we talk about Eddie Bravo's tournaments, and nothing against like the guys if they happen to like see this episode, and like I'd probably go back to the 10th Planet School. I
Yeah.
like the idea of the no gi, and it sometimes it fits in my schedule really well. It was a cool bunch of dudes, and maybe there was more there than I didn't see. Blah blah, whatever.
And it all depends on the school, right? Like just because it's part of a bigger franchise doesn't mean that individually the school can't have its own identity. And it's certainly the identity of the school is the people that train there. So if you're comfortable with those people, then that's the place to be.
Yeah, I'm kind of like looking for something else, but yeah, what I was saying is like with everything that you know, like that you're training with, like and Danaher's guys, they win Eddie Bravo's tournaments.
Yeah, they win everything. Like I am training with monsters, and the women who train there are monsters. Yeah, they're like really, really good. I'm really happy there.
Yeah, so that it's such a different level. Hearing Danaher speak, I guess I learned about him watching him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and just like breaking it down. Like, why would you even want to take somebody down? And
yeah,
he just
I like taking people down because I enjoy it.
Yeah, but he's like talking about like then you take away their power. You're taking there's a lot less. You have, being able to like control somebody. There's a lot less likely that something weird's going to happen. Because if you start, it's unlikely that if I got in a fight with Conor McGregor that I would knock him out.
No.
But I have, it's very, very unlikely, but I have a chance. I have that puncher's chance.
Right.
Conor McGregor is probably a really bad example. That's my example. But just say a professional boxer, the guy that's like the guy with 20 fights or something. And I've done some boxing. I'm not a professional boxer, but I have that puncher's chance. So I could do something weird, set it up with a kick. He's not used to kicks. I have that puncher's chance. But against a grappler, if the grappler is just better than me, it's not happening. You're not like you don't beat somebody that's better than you at grappling, or then you're like there's like some people that are like really close and might go back and forth. But if somebody like if I go up against like Gordon Ryan. I don't have that. I don't have the equivalent. There is no equivalent of that of the puncher's chance.
No.
Grappling. It is.
None.
It's not happening. I'm not. It would be the craziest thing ever if I beat Gordon Ryan. And I know, maybe I know all the same moves. I don't, but I got the idea. Yeah, leg locks. I can teach leg locks.
Right.
But it's a whole different thing. Just like
his system is super effective. Have you had a chance to look at his DVDs at all? I'm not by any means like endorsing it or anything, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I've watched his stuff on. I've watched his like videos that you can see for free, but I haven't. I was thinking about getting like his new one, like the back attack. I think he has a Kimura one coming up. And, the leg lock system. And yeah, I think like there's so much like free information.
Yeah.
But I think if there was any that I was going to buy, and I am thinking about buying his system because it's just obvious that he's the man right now.
Yeah, until someone else comes up with something to counter his system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he's probably and working on.
But
yeah,
I like he teaches jiu-jitsu the way that I teach yoga in that it's very biomechanical, right? So he teaches leverage points. He's like, this won't work unless your head is over in this position and that person's hips are here. So it's not just like, this is the technique and this is step-by-step how to do it. He explains concepts. And not that other teachers don't. There are a lot of other super amazing teachers out there. I train with Dominica as well. She's fucking awesome. And, when I trained with Shaolin's great. There's a lot of really talented, amazing jiu-jitsu teachers out there. It just so happens that I'm at Danaher's class now,
Yeah, he's like the Yoda of the grappling world right now. And yeah, that's amazing to be like right by him. So I know you said you had to go at 11. We got like 1 minute. I
can do like 5 extra minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're doing your the yoga class that you're putting together for grapplers or martial artists, the same thing, but like are you saying like, okay, in this yoga posture or going from this one to this one, this is kind of like, this is going to help with your passing. This is going to help with your,
I
are you
try.
trying to connect dots?
Yeah, I don't even say this is so and so yoga pose. Like I don't I don't like putting there's so much. So as you know, and your readers may not know, I wrote a book about yoga with two other women called Exposing Yoga Myths.
I've read some of it. It's good.
I'll use the names of poses if people are there who are familiar with the poses. But the type of yoga that I teach is generally better, more popular with people who don't already have an attachment to yoga, because what I teach is so different in certain ways. And it's not rigid, like you're going from this pose to this pose and this is the transition, but more of like, can you find internal and external rotation of the hip while maintaining hip flexion and spinal extension, you know, and if you do, this may look like pigeon pose. And if you step your foot forward, this is how to transition from this pose to butterfly, which is a position in jiu-jitsu. And I do explain, you know, as I'm doing it, like this is helping for passing. This is how you would switch from side control to case katame. This is how, you know, so I do explain that as we're going through it. And it depends on the audience. If I have an audience that's more like everybody who took my class Saturday was all jiu-jitsu practitioners with not a lot of experience of yoga. So I didn't so much discuss these are the yoga poses as much as like, this is a position you'll find yourself in deep half. And this is like being able to create momentum from one side to the other, being able to isolate and move my leg to base out, but not let it disturb my body, right? Sometimes the difference between being swept is literally just the ability to maintain spinal posture if I don't have the power to flex my hips and extend my spine in certain positions, and I have no choice but to rock back onto my sacrum, I'm going to get swept. So it's just the idea of being able to stay strong somewhere while moving something else, right? For the most part. And then other concepts like, which aren't present in yoga, adding in speed and momentum. So like, can you do this controlled? Now can you do it fast? But still with the same level of control, still with the same level of awareness. So it varies from a traditional yoga class in those aspects as well. Also, I don't do the whole Om Namaste thing. For me, it feels a little too much like cultural appropriation, because I didn't grow up speaking Sanskrit. I don't have any attachment to it. I don't feel more connected to God when I Om or whatever it is. So I just don't do it in my class. And I don't know if that's blasphemous or what, but I think that what we've done in this country with yoga is already passing that boundary. So I'm comfortable in saying that what I teach is yoga.
Yeah, I think it's about being authentic, because there's, I was talking with, I have a buddy of mine that's about to do yoga teacher training, and he was on the podcast, and I was like, I've had experience with chakras, and some of it's different than what you read in the books, and not all the books agree. You can have like Indian teachers that are supposed to be authentic, and they're not all agreeing what chakras even are.
Right, and some of it's a language barrier, to be honest.
Yeah.
Where they'll explain something, but they're not explaining it like they would in their own language, and so it gets kind of disconnected.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, what do you do when you're learning from somebody, or you might be learning from somebody they don't have any experience in it. It's just like, somebody makes up a religion, and then I'm going to teach you about that religion.
Right.
Do you believe it? I mean, it's so it can be kind of weird, but I've had experience. I've had esoteric experiences and with that stuff. So, but yeah, it gets into but it sounds like you're doing, I'd be really interested to see what you're doing. How are you thinking of doing something online too? Like, do you have a YouTube channel, or are you going to teach?
I'm headed towards that direction, but yes, I'm thinking about doing courses online. I've come up with things. I used to work with golfers, so I came up with like yoga for golf and that I've done with clients abroad. So I've already kind of done that, but I do want to really elaborate on this program. I feel like it's a huge contribution that I can make. Certainly when I become a brown belt or a black belt, I do want to start teaching, and I think that that's something that I can separate me from other people, is the focus on mobility, the focus on control, the focus on the biomechanical part of the sport. So, that is something that I plan to elaborate on for sure. And certainly, like, technique is still technique, right? I mean, and that's one of the things you're saying is I subbed a no-gi class the other day, and there's such a distinct difference between the level of detail and understanding that I can teach someone versus what a black belt can teach someone, And even though I can sub the moves, it's like I need to get more experience there. Luckily, I don't have stage fright. I love talking in front of people. The teaching aspect is already there. I just need the technique, which showed itself very clearly when I went to Masters Worlds. Even though I have a physical advantage over some of the other women, I might be faster, I might be stronger, I might be more flexible. It comes down to experience at that belt. I've only been a purple belt since December, and some of those women have been purple belts for 4 years. So even though I'm stronger and faster than them, they just have better technique. And that's what I love about the sport. It's time you put in on the mats, focused, concentrated time that you put in on the mats. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah. I kind of like kind of the way I put it before is, because I'm kind of like searching for another class. And like when I go somewhere, like I was telling my buddy, I want to feel like I just fell over the rail at the zoo. Like I'm like looking over at this animal like, holy shit, I have to fight that thing now?
Yeah.
And I don't want to go there and be like the best one. It's unlikely that, I've been doing this stuff for a long time, but like learning like the classical jiu-jitsu, judo, it's like, we're doing all the same techniques. So it's not like I really learned any new techniques training with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people, but it was more like just different. And I could say better. I guess I could say better because there's also like this new generation. And like my buddy Blake, who teaches at Marcelo Monteiro's, his technique is just so good. And he outweighs me by like 80 pounds. So when I'm sparring him, it's different. And he's taller than me. So if we're boxing, his knuckles are bouncing off my head over and over again and easily. And like I try to hit him and he's not even there. And I like that. And then, I can also like teach a class. So it's kind of this thing. So, I mean, I know, that you understand the level that you're at. And if you're training with sometimes like the newer people come in, like you're training with like Danaher and he's like on this level and all these like monsters that compete and they're famous all over the world. And, but then, so you think like, man, I'm not very good at this. But then like people come in.
That's how you get good.
Yeah, but people come in and they're new, even if it's a man who's bigger than you, and you're able to choke them out. Like, okay, I'm confident.
That's what happens. Is Danaher's class is only blue belt and up, right?
Okay.
So like I try to pick my rounds where I have like there's 6 rounds after he teaches. So I try to pick 3 rounds where I'm going with blue or purple belts, 3 rounds where I'm going with brown or black belts. Obviously, those rounds I'm trying to survive. And the other rounds, when I'm going with purple belt, I'm going hard. And when I'm going with blue belt, I try to use all my stuff. So if I'm going with someone who I know has less skill than me, I try to use it as an opportunity to, all right, I'm going to let them get me in a position that I know I'm bad at. So I let them, and then I try to work from there. Or I'm only going to use this submission, or I'm only going to work on this concept, or I'm going to try everything on my left side. So that's how I kind of like to play those games. But then I've gone to other schools with people who aren't as skilled or smaller schools. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm actually really good at this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I can have a day where I go to Danaher's, get my ass kicked. And I'm like, man, I suck. But then I go somewhere else and I'm like, I don't suck at all.
Yeah, it's a good balance. You said something that reminded me So that same guy, that 3rd degree black belt that I was talking about, who got the neck injury from the white belt, we were in at judo, and I just got pretty much annihilated the whole time. I spent most of the class flying through the air upside down and landing on my head, and it was just, and I was like, man, it was all about survival today.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, it's always about killing. And it's just like, so when you said survival, that's what that reminded me of. It's like, no, it's about killing. And it's like, oh, okay. So it's just like this, like little different thing in the mind where it's like going up against the monster. Like, I just fell over the rail at the zoo and I have to fight this animal that's not like me. But yes, that's kind of like what that reminded me of. But I'm definitely, I know you said you got to kind of get going.
Yeah, my friend's in town my old college roommate is in town.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to show her around Astoria. Listen, man, if you're ever in New York, definitely come play.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to check out Danaher's class, check out what you're doing with the yoga. And let's put a link so people, I'll put a link so people can find you in the description. So whether they're on YouTube or iTunes.
I think the best way to get a hold of me or just check out what I'm doing is honestly my Instagram account, which is Kim-Lien N Kendall. I think that's the best way for people to just kind of see what I'm doing. I am not so good with social media. I tend to just try to stick to one platform and do everything from there. So soon that's going to change. Hopefully I'll get a social media manager to help me kind of expand. But for now, that's the best way for people to keep up with what I'm doing. But yeah, anyone you know that's in the area, definitely tell them to come by. My friend's school in Jackson Heights is really going to be great. I mean, even there's kids classes and everything. My daughter goes there. It's such a good vibe. I'm very, very excited for him and for his school. Well, and I'm a part of it too, so it's my school. So, Yeah,
that's really cool. The putting the yoga with the jiu-jitsu and being able to like put the dots together, not just like you'll be more flexible or something like that. Like it's not just about being flexible. No. So what else was? Oh, your book. So
Exposing Yoga Myths. It's on Amazon. It's on my website, which is smarterbodies.com. There's the ebook version or the hard copy. It's this short read. It's like, I think 75 pages, and it's just about the things. I mean, I've been doing yoga for a very long time, and it's basically my journey and our journey. It's the 2 other women who I co-wrote it with also kind of share similar experiences of getting into this thing that you're so excited about and then becoming disenchanted by the culture or the lack of scientific knowledge was another thing where you go to these classes and you hear things like, don't use your glutes in a bridge pose. How the fuck else do you get your hips up? Like it's just things like that I've heard over and over again that I'm like, can we not do that? Can we elevate the sport, or not the sport, but can we elevate yoga to where people take it more seriously because it's a beneficial thing, but there's just so much shit. It's like, oh, I have to be a vegetarian. No, you don't. I've got to give up X, Y, and Z. No, you don't. Like it's just really, or I've even heard like, oh, it's not for a man, or I don't want to do it because I'm not flexible, which is exactly why you would want to do it. Mm-hmm. Oh, I've gotten hurt in a shoulder stand. I mean, there's just so much shit. So it's a fun read for sure. For sure.
Yeah, we'll put links to all that, and people can find it. And so thanks for being on, and love to have you on again. We can
for sure
into all kinds of different rabbit holes to go down, and with the training stuff, and it's like my favorite subject, the yoga stuff, and like some of the stuff about it that drives you crazy probably drives me crazy too. And so love to have you on again. So is there anything else you want to leave everyone with? Final
no, not really. I think the biggest thing for me with people finding movement in general and living a fit life is find something you love doing and do it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So many people when I started jiu-jitsu were like, you're gonna get hurt, this and that, and honestly, I just don't give a shit. I love doing it. Yeah, I'm gonna get hurt. I'm getting hurt. I don't care. It's something I love doing. I love the community. I love the people. I love competing. It's a part of my life. My daughter does it. You know, find something you love. That's my advice.
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thanks again for being on, and I'll stop the recording. And I'll talk to you for a second after I
Sure.